Warhammer 40K. In the grim, dark future of the 41st millennium, there's only war. Everything sucks. Everyone wants to kill each other in increasingly horrible ways. War crimes, the big hot new thing. Geneva Conventions, more like the Geneva Suggestions. Everyone's just having a wild, awful time. And it's great, but here's the problem. Where do you get into 40K? Like, how do you start? I have been into 40K for a very long time, and I've often talked to my friends about it. And an adage we came up with is that getting into 40K is like ramming your head into a brick wall until eventually the wall topples over and you understand everything. And that's kind of because it's really hard to find resources to get into it. What books do you start on? What are they talking about in these video games? Those models, damn, they're so expensive. All that stuff. And there are some great things for it. They're very detailed. This video in particular is going to be an overview of Warhammer 40K. Pretty streamlined. This is Cliff Notes. If you're expecting hyper accuracy and lots of details, go to Luton. Luton's got a lot of really good videos on this. Go watch him instead. This is going to be just a general overview, like Cliff Notes. To start, we're going to go back to the beginning of the universe in Warhammer, a good 60 million years ago, back when the Big Bang occurred. When that happened, the first main sentient life that took hold were a group of beings called the Old Ones. These big, powerful, very kind frogmen were big fans of cultivating life and ascending life forms. They went around tinkering with species they found, uplifting them to sapience, as you do. As well, the Old Ones had a mastery of the immaterium, the warp, which is the main way you travel around space in 40K. If you want to travel faster than light, the way you do that is you puncture into this other world, this like immaterial realm. Like imagine nether travel in Minecraft. Build your nether portal, you go through, you travel a good few blocks, pop back up into the real world, and bam, you're farther than you started. Same thing. And it's just as dangerous. There's a lot of scary monsters that are in the warp that want to kill you just as bad as those dudes in the nether. And they had a special type of travel, another way you can do it, which is the web way. The web way is like literally a web through the warp that's very safe and also instantaneous. You poof in, poof out, right where you want to go. The Old Ones use this web way to travel through the universe, uplifting life and discovering new people, making friends, all around being pretty cool. Teaching all these new races their ways, stuff like that. This all came to a halt when they met a race called the Necrontyr.
I was born with glass bones and paper skin. Every morning I break my legs, and every afternoon I break my arms.
The Necrontyr, born into a solar system that was basically inhospitable to life. But, that old adage, life finds a way. They were a very short-lived humanoid race that lived on a planet orbiting a star that bombarded them with solar radiation that essentially gave all of them like super cancer. It was pretty rough being a Necrontyr. Your entire life was building things for your death, as you had very inhospitable temporary housing you lived in while you worked on your giant tomb complex where you're actually going to end and basically spend the rest of eternity. Life sucked as a Necrontyr. They were also kind of assholes because of it. Can't really blame them. But as they went out, traveled the stars in their very slow ways they could, they met the Old Ones. Meeting the Old Ones, they saw this race of immortal super beings that completely just got rid of their mortal coil and were able to just be all the things a Necrontyr wished they could be. And in asking the Old Ones, how did you achieve this? The Old Ones just, get out of here, loser. Get out. We don't want to talk to you. Scram. Just saying no to them. Which also, by the way, I did some extra digging on this. There isn't a canon reason why they said no. A lot of the theories are just the Necrontyr are a bunch of dickheads, which, to be honest, yeah. Like, I wouldn't give them immortality either. They're a bunch of weirdos. And because the Old Ones denied this, the Necrontyr got angry, real mad. And they decided, and some of the higher-ups decided, you know what? Fuck those Old Ones. Let's go kill them. Let's kill all of them. And they tried, and lost. Full on, like, game was rigged from the start. Got trashed. Because, They got a bunch of shitty cancer-ridden bodies, and then there's these super beings that can travel the universe in a split second. And they got pushed all the way back. All their colonization just kind of thrown away. Lost all of it because of this war. Got pushed all the way back to their homeworld. And they were pretty pissed. And during this time too, the Necrontyr were all these like squabbling dynasties. As they were all warring with each other, the Triarch, who were the leaders of the Necrontyr, specifically with one guy in the lead, Skarek the Silent King. He was trying to figure out a way to reorganize the Necrontyr and try to find something to get revenge against the old ones for sliding him in this way. And it was then they discovered, orbiting their star, feeding off of solar radiation, were these almost immaterial beings that they would dub the Catan, also known as Star God. And these would play a massive role in the upcoming War in Heaven.
You could make a religion out of this.
The Necrontyr discovered the Catan, and seeing the promise of this powerful being, they lured them into these material bodies made out of necrodermis, which is living metal. Imagine like the T-1000. That's living metal. Besides that, even like old editions of Warhammer, the Necrons were literally just Terminator ripoffs. They literally had a rule called "We'll be back." Like, it wasn't such. And they lured these Catan into these bodies. And the Catan, popping into the material world and perceiving everything around them, thought, all right, being in the real world, kind of cool. When the Catan reached these physical bodies, there's one particular one that had some plans in mind. A Catan named the Deceiver. Now, all of the Catan got a bunch of like weird, edgy, but kind of cool names. There's the Nightbringer, who's literally a giant Grim Reaper. There's the Void Dragon, who, I mean, looks sick. This guy looks awesome. And then there's the Deceiver. Like, you wouldn't trust this guy. But Skarek, listen to him. The Deceiver went to the Silent King and said, hey, long time ago, we had a bit of a tussle with the old ones too. They're kind of dicks. They bonded over that a little bit. And said, hey, I have a plan to help you get back at the old ones. It just takes a little bit of something called soul transference. And with thoughts of getting the Necrontyr all under one banner again, not fighting with each other, not warring in a giant civil war, but a single common enemy. Thought, sounds pretty good. And he took him up on the offer. And every single Necrontyr was dragged into these giant furnaces where their physical body was melted away. And their souls eaten by the Catan. Because when they popped in the material world, kind of messed around a little bit, they found souls are a lot tastier than solar radiation. And they ate all of the Necrontyr souls and put them into necrodermis bodies, where they're now a bunch of killer robots. Their minds are dulled and reprogrammed to serve the Catan and the higher-ups in the Necrontyr just mindlessly. And every single member of that race was killed that day and reborn as the Necrons. On near unkillable war machines that could go out, serve the Catan's will, and get a lot more souls for the Catan. And so they did. And they fought hard. And this is what led to the main beat of the War in Heaven.
Mr. Squidward, I should kick your fucking ass!
So the main beat of the War in Heaven was the Catan with their army of Necrons behind them, now renamed the Necrons, because hey, if you're gonna get reforged, you gotta shorten the name a little bit. Tyr is an unnecessary symbol, so get it out of here. So they cleaved through, also hitting all of these races that the old ones had like ascended into sapience, and the Catans right behind them, just eating all of those souls, having a grand old time. And the old ones got real scared for good reason. Now there's these beings that can actually hurt them and break through their defenses in the webway, and a lot of horrible things. So they started quickly uplifting races in secret to try to fight back. The Eldar, psychically powered like elves. They're really gifted with psychic powers, which the old ones taught in secret and raised them up to have this psychic power, because that psychic abilities are the only thing that can really mess up the Catan. And on the other end of the spectrum, the Krorks, who would later become orcs, giant fungus, just biological weapons that thought of nothing but violence and just killing the thing that's in front of them. Both things they used to fight back against the Necrons. And the Necrons, they actually did take some losses there. That sucked a bit. But the Necrons still pushed through. And during this war in heaven, the Immaterium, the warp, started getting more turbulent as all of these psychically powerful creatures that the old ones have lifted started making little footprints in the warp as they died and bringing up old gods and old creatures that lay dormant in the warp, started riling them up a bit. 3 ones in particular. The first one, Nurgle, the chaos god of pestilence, disease, decay, and stagnation. Grandpapa Nurgle sits in his little realm of chaos, stirring a giant cauldron full of diseases, throwing them every which way. Really likes it when you get sick and when you rot and decay. The whole circle of life is a big theme with Nurgle. Then there's Khorne, the chaos god of violence, murder, bloodshed, war, all of that. Big fan of just killing the guy that's in front of you, letting the blood flow. Gets Khorne real excited. As well, if you've ever heard the saying, blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne, that's all talking to Khorne. He loves that shit. He's got a giant pile of skulls, like from his favorite, like, kids. They just build big mountains of skulls next to Khorne, and he gets all proud of them. And then we have Tzeentch, the chaos god of trickery, deception, magic, and forbidden lore, and birds. He likes birds. There's a lot of birds. And he is the god of, like, plans, deceptions, all those schemes you put together, things changing and throwing it into chaos. He's a big fan of that. And all 3 of those gods got pretty supercharged during the war in heaven, to the point where traveling through the warp is a lot more dangerous. But that'll become a story for another time. Because at this point, the Catan and the Necrons have cleaved through the old ones. And in that moment of victory, where the Catan beat the old ones, Skarek the Silent King was planning, and he struck back. In secret, he was developing weapons that could hurt the Catan. But how do you kill a star god? You can't really. There's no real way to kill them. But if you shatter them into pieces and contain those shards, then in that way the Catan are gone. And also to be used as weapons later, as they have little, like, Pokeballs and stuff they throw out and hit you with a giant just shard of a Catan, which is awful and horrifying. It's scary on the tabletop. Fuck the Nightbringer for real. 3 wounds per phase. I play Custodians. I don't have any other phases. It takes me like 5 turns to kill him. With that, the Catan are gone. The Necrons are pretty weak at this point. Their numbers are dwindled, and they're real, like, exhausted from this war. I don't know how a robot can get tired, but they got tired. And at this point, too, the Eldar were off, expanding, making vast technological expansion, and spreading around like a bunch of just rabbits. And the Silent King decided it's not the time of the Necrons anymore. It's the age of the Eldar. So he took all of his Necrons, put them into their tomb worlds, planets that are just giant tomb complexes that are just filled with the dead. And he put all of the Necrons into a giant stasis sleep, where they would sleep for 60 million years while they waited for the fall of the Eldar so they could come back and reign the galaxy like they once did. And except for the Silent King, as he felt real shit about what he did. He kind of, damned his entire species to just being a bunch of soulless automatons. That takes a toll. So he went out to the fringes of the galaxy in his single starship and just sat there in penance to try to atone for what he did, and kept vigil for the right moment to bring the Necrons back into the forefront. And he stood there like sentient, fully aware for 60 million years. Pretty impressive. I love the Silent King. He's a great character. He's real cool. But with the Necrons out of the picture and the Eldar expanding, at this point, we can finally go to the stars of the show, the humans.